Hello, it's Nikki and welcome back. On a Thursday, I talk about your future self and give you lots of tools and tricks and techniques and exercises to play with. And as I always say, there is no perfect way to do this. There is not a step-by-step A plus B equals C formula. Sometimes you've got to chuck a lot of things at it. Sometimes the timeline, even though you neatly package it together, is not in keeping with your timeline. But you know what? We all get there. It will all happen in the end somehow. You just got to keep going. So this is not a quick fix. This is not something that is necessarily universal. This is essentially one of those big grazing platters that you can pick and mix and choose and take what you want, take what you like, take something to try. If it doesn't try, put it back, move on to the next thing and go from there. So 2 examples I'm going to be using today are me moving to London and us buying a house. And both of those moments for me were significant in the way that my life felt like it changed a lot. The process to actually doing those things was long. The third thing was it all was a lot to get my head around. And yeah, let's get into it. There's no fourth thing. Okay, so here's who this video is perfect for. If you have a goal, if you have something that keeps coming up again and again and again, and it might come regularly, or at first it might come every so often. Maybe you have a glass of wine and then suddenly you're like, oh, I'd love to do that one day. And then slowly but surely, once you start to pay attention to it, that thought comes around again and again, to the point where you might say to yourself, do you know what? This feels absolutely impossible and out of reach. And I have not a clue about how this is going to happen. However, the fact that this feeling, thought, idea, dream, wish keeps coming up again and again, maybe I'm going to allow myself to think it's possible, to think that there could be a way. And sometimes, often, this is the case. The big dreams that we have, whenever we watch documentaries about people who have made it or achieved something fantastic, they will often have that story where they will say, on one hand, I absolutely knew this was going to be a thing. I absolutely knew it and I sensed it from being maybe little or for a long time. But often there is a piece of it where they're like, but I had no idea how any of this was going to happen. And sometimes it completely exceeds all recognition, all reality. So here's the first thing I want you to do. Well, before we get into the 5, I want you to think about what it is that you want. If you don't know what you want, come over to my goal setting section on my website. I can help you. I can help you make sense of your thoughts and really help you ignite those thoughts and feelings once again. Because I know sometimes this is something I actively have to do, because sometimes I just get stuck in day-to-day life and school run and have I packed the swimming kit and what day is it and what we having for dinner and all of that. And to get into that dream state, that big picture, what could be possible, that daydreaming state, it's a different part of my brain. And so unless I spend time in that place or carve out time to be in that place, it just doesn't happen. So first and foremost, create that time for yourself. Then point number 1. Whoa, the lights are coming in. Point number 1, super strength, your belief. Seek it out. I have started doing this jokey thing with my daughter where she's suddenly become aware, and I remember it with my son, become aware of where she is. So what she can do and what she can't do. What that person can do, but she's still struggling with. how quickly that person finishes their maths and how quickly she does, how fast that person can run, all of that. And she started saying a few things. She said to me the other day, well, I'm not very good at balancing. And I said, that's not true. And she said, well, I couldn't do that one balance. So I've started doing this jokey thing that if she says something, she almost like has to take it out of her mouth and chuck it out the window. I mean, she's 5, we're making this silly thing, but I want her to be aware of her thoughts and how powerful they are. And so many of us, and especially for her as a girl, she will be conditioned to play herself down, to not be too much. And however much things have moved on, I see it all the time. I see how people treat my son and I see how people treat my daughter, and how I'm really living it through the messaging, through social media, through what they talk about, through what their fears and worries and anxieties are. And there's so much in that. And so when you think about the goal, however impossible it feels, however out of reach it feels, it is your responsibility to super strengthen that belief. Not wait for somebody else, not wait for validation, not wait for a helping hand. You have to go first. You have to believe this is possible. Now, does this mean that you turn on a switch and then from here on in, you're just like, yeah, I believe it every single day. I believe it blindly. It's going to be great, even though there's no physical evidence. Sometimes you won't feel like that. Sometimes you're like, is this ever going to happen? Have I missed the boat? What is this all for? Sometimes you're not going to see it. Sometimes it's going to feel out of reach. Whatever you need to do to bring it back to the drawing board, bring it back to the vision, almost like coming back to the campfire. Whatever that means for you, do it. Because the more time you can spend in that, I'm going to find a way. I wouldn't be dreaming about this unless I thought it was possible. The more time you can spend in that spot, rather than in the headiness of like, but I don't know how, and I'm not sure, and all of that stuff. The sooner you can get into that grounded spot, when suddenly you feel like you're in charge of your breath, like a warrior 2 in yoga. You're just here and you're like, yes, I feel my feet on the ground. That is the vibe. Not like, I'm balancing and I don't know if I'm going to wobble. Sometimes you might feel like that in daily life, but you want to have those moments in your life where you come back to those solid foundations. Number 2, put yourself in the game imperfectly. This house that we live in now was on the market 4 months before we saw it, and it fell through twice. And I'd seen it because I'd been watching the market for 4 or 5 years. And I saw it come on. And I had that feeling of, oh my goodness, I've just got to go and see it. Oh my goodness, I don't know if this is the right time, but I'm going to go and see it. So I dropped my kids off at school, not school and nursery at that stage, because my daughter was only 2. And I went to the estate agent. And I was the first one in there, Monday morning. Hi, I would love to book an appointment to see this house. And they filled out some details and booked me in an appointment. And I knew then, bizarrely, that this was going to be ours, even though it was a long, complicated, complex process. I knew that in order to be in the game, I had to put myself in the game. And I could have really got stuck in my head of like, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. Just go and see it. Just go and do it. Go and try it on. Whatever that is in terms of that next step where you sort of half-heartedly put your hand up and you're like, I maybe could. Sometimes in life, there are those moments where you're like, yes, I'm ready. Let's go. This was not a moment like that. I was very cautious. I was like, hi, I really would, is this okay? And then things began to move very quickly, and then they didn't, and then they did, and it was all a bit stop. But This is one of the things that happens so often for my clients. They wait until they're expecting that day where something is almost going to be delivered, like, ta-da, here is exactly the thing that you wanted. Life does not work like that. Very rarely. Things are not delivered in a gift box that somebody else has just magically created that you weren't expecting. You have to show up first, and you have to show up. And this was one of the things, actually, the showing up imperfectly is that opportunity for you to say, I'm showing up imperfectly and I'm here to learn. I'm here to ask questions. I'm not sure about that. Could you go into a bit more detail? Because what happens when you do that initial showing up, you begin to get more information. The more information and knowledge you get, the more confident you begin to get. And then the thing comes to life much more, rather than sitting on the sidelines going, well, I don't know, and nobody told me, and I'm just waiting for somebody to come and get me. Does not happen. Number 3, work out what you like and what you don't like. This was such an interesting moment, especially when I was choosing a drama school. We didn't have the internet at that point, so I just ordered loads and loads of prospectuses, because they used to come through the door. And very quickly, from what they said and their pictures and their copy, I began to work out what kind of course I wanted, what I liked, what I didn't, where I wanted the emphasis to be. And so that allowed me to make the decision of which places I wanted to apply for. The same with the house move. I, for years, maybe 3 or 4 years beforehand, whilst I've been awake, putting kids to bed and lying in the dark and needing something to do, I signed up for all the Rightmove alerts in different areas, different prices, different bedrooms, not because I was like, I just don't know what this is, but to get a sense of what was out there. And then here is one of the brilliant things that happened. They started to do these video tours where you could have that 3D experience, where almost like a VR situation, you could walk through the house. Now, around where we live, there are lots of conversion houses. And some of those were very higgledy-piggledy, like a rabbit warren. And so many of those that were available, I guess, would not have worked for our family. And so understanding that the floor plan and the flow was going to be really important almost allowed me to get into that guess who game much quicker. You know, when you want to ask those questions that eliminate lots of the things, that was perfect. I wasn't doing that with an audience. I wasn't doing that with an estate agent. I wasn't showing up and going, I don't really know what I want. I took that time to figure out, and I was doing this with Matt as well, but taking that time to figure out what this is, because then it's easy to say yes, it's easy to say no. So when this particular property was available, it was a yes. It was like, I'm going on Monday, I'm booking an appointment, I am doing it. So getting to know what is on your priority list, what is at the top of that list, was really important. Likewise with London, when I moved to London I wanted to be in London. And some of them were in Kent, they were in Hertfordshire, they'd say only an hour from London. But one of the things for me was, if I could be in London, that is what I really wanted. And it was brilliant, you know, that ability to be able to jump on the tube after class, go to the theatre. We were always getting free tickets for things. And it was great in terms of that exposure. Number 4, spend time with your goal every single day and get excited. This is so key. Again, it's like that campfire moment. Come back to the fire. Is it still burning? Is it still warm? What does it need? What's happening? Now, as part of my running route, I began to run past this house a lot. I began to daydream and think like, oh, how would I get into town? Or which end of the road would I go to get to the main? Like, I started to really visualize. I started to think about, I wonder who lives next door. I wonder, all of these things. I spent time with that goal. I began to look at our furniture and I began to get into that place of, well, if we move, what can we take with us? Will that bed fit there? How will we get that chair up the stairs? How much are moving companies charging at the moment? When could we feasibly do this move? Getting excited, getting into the possibility, making plans is a great way of moving into momentum. Number 5, the final one, maybe one of the most important ones. I want you to spot the obstacles quickly, label and disable the obstacles. Here's what I mean. Naturally, we have so many thoughts and feelings and old junk going around our head, why we can't do something. Somebody once told us this was impossible. Yeah, but what's happening? You know, we were trying to move post-COVID. One of the trips we did here, we had to have a mask on. What if it doesn't go through? All of these sorts of things. It can be easy to get consumed by all of that stuff. So my philosophy is label it and disable it quickly, because often those thoughts, feelings, they don't come true. They're just noise in your head. They're just things that are blocking and stopping and getting in the way of the flow. And sometimes you're just doing it unnecessarily or unconsciously. So your job here is to say, is this true? Okay, I'm going to label it and I'm going to say this is just an old thought or feeling or belief. I just need to move that to the side. I don't think that this thought is helpful. Okay, why don't I choose a more helpful thought? Or one of the things that I do sometimes is when I get in that, oh my gosh, it's never going to happen, or why is it all taking so long? I will reframe it very quickly. What if it's taking the right amount of time? What if it's protecting us from things that we can't see yet? And that's why that delay is in place. What if it all worked out for the best? When you put yourself in those places where you can, again, like point number 1, go back into that warrior 2, I've got this is happening, I can do this, and operate from that level playing field, that is when things are going to move fast. They're going to move in an exciting way. And you know what? I can't wait to hear what you end up doing. If you want help with goal setting, if you want help with strategy, all the links are down below. If you want to make some great stuff happen at this time of year, get in touch. I would love to help you. I would love to support you every step of the way. And I'm sending you lots of love. See you next time. Bye.